Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Xander Sprague.
Hello, epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Xander Sprague, and today I am honored to be joined by Rebecca Doring. Welcome, Rebecca, and tell us who you are.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored and excited to be here. I live in Connecticut. I am a coach. I love helping wellness teachers, wellness professionals, yoga teachers expand their businesses, overcoming imposter syndrome, doubts, whatever's holding us back from truly stepping into doing the things that we feel so inspired and lit up to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you didn't start off in wellness, did you, Rebecca?
No, I didn't.
I believe if I read your bio properly, you're a trained pastry chef.
That's correct. That's
Oh,
correct.
being a pastry chef and doing wellness seems sort of counter, because pastry chefs make really yummy stuff that we shouldn't eat.
Yes, yes. Well, and even more to me, it's pretty counter in the mindset. And I experienced such a contrast of how I live now, which propelled me into the world that I'm in now. But as a pastry chef, you're expected to be a perfectionist. You're
Sure.
expected to strive for perfection, work under adrenaline and stress and fear and massive amounts of pressure. And uh, the way I live now is virtually the complete opposite of striving to calm my nervous system. I'm a meditation teacher as well. So lowering anxiety, lowering stress, tuning into what lights me up, believing in myself, having my own back, everything is opposite to the world that I came from.
Definitely. Well, as you know, I believe that epic begins with one step forward, and I am fascinated to understand, having spent time being trained, being in this really high stress environment, how did you take your first epic step away from being a pastry chef? Because of course it's hard. We are like, oh, here's what I've trained to do, and we forget that we have choice in our life. So what was that moment for you where you're like, I need to step away from this?
Yeah, it was life happened for me. At the time, I was working, I'd gotten away from even the joy of pastry itself. I was most inspired by working on plated desserts and high-end restaurants. And I was living where I live now in Connecticut. And at the time, there weren't really any of those restaurants. So I was debating on going back to New York or finding somewhere else. But instead, I was just working in the food industry, not using my talents and being more and more stressed and burnt out. And that's when life happened. And we got the news that my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And everything changed for me in that moment. The idea of continuing to work massive hours when everybody else was off on holidays, on nights, on weekends seemed pointless to me
Mm-hmm.
anymore. The idea of being so highly stressed and burnt out from my job that didn't even pay well, seemed pointless to me. And I was actually bartending at the time to make ends meet. And there was one of my customers just mentioned the word massage therapy. And I still can't explain it because none of it made logical sense. But something happened when I heard massage therapy where I was like, huh, that's interesting. I need to become a massage therapist. And I found myself as if I were in a trance driving to the massage therapy school, having signed up for like a free workshop to check it out, not knowing what I was doing, feeling absolutely crazy, thinking like, I'm not even that touchy of a feely kind of person. And I'm going to learn how to massage people. I know how to knead bread, but that's about it. And as soon as I walked into the building there, I knew why I was drawn to that place. because the atmosphere was such an extreme contrast to what I was used to in the kitchens. It was,
Definitely.
yeah. And
Ooh.
that propelled me forward. Just like that was the biggest turning point, which I don't practice massage therapy now, but that was my entrance into this world.
I get it. And so I'm going to guess that you went on to become, a massage therapist, at least for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I built a successful business as well. I learned a lot about business that I use now, but I did. And until that burnt me out a little bit because it wasn't my real passion, but it guided me to see the moments where I would have deep conversations with people, hand people tools to feel better, to coach them through something naturally. Those were the moments that I absolutely loved. And that's what led me to chase those dreams.
Absolutely. And that is honestly so important. It is all part of that epic journey of being brave and saying, even though it's counter to everything that the world is telling me, here's where I'm going to go. And oftentimes taking those first few steps, understanding your destination, but not having a clue how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And certainly as I'm an entrepreneur, I get it. Like there's stuff that we launch into and you're like, I have no idea how to do. I'm doing this,
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
opening a coaching business, or I'm also a licensed professional clinical counselor, so my mental
Mm.
health business. I'm like, all right, here's my shingle. And it is funny how believing in yourself unfailingly really is so incredibly powerful.
Mm.
And so, how did you get into from massage therapy into wellness?
Yeah, well, I was in the wellness world as a massage therapist and I became a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher. I was kind of just as soon as I started to feel better and started to realize that the years of stress and worry and overwhelm were not me. They were just a product of not having the coping skills and tools to calm my nervous system and find who I actually really am. I was just obsessed, almost like hungry for it all, willing to sign up for anything, willing to read any book, go on a retreat, take a workshop. So I was just absorbing it all. And that is what I kept following, the thing that was calling towards me, the thing that was drawing me towards a more fulfilling, more meaningful life, which honestly was the reason why I became a pastry chef in the beginning as well. I thought that that would bring me to that feeling of meaning and fulfillment.
Right.
So I continued following my love of meditation and yoga and found a mentor, was working with a mentor. He was helping me launch an online business, but I was still holding on to my massage clients, but I really wanted to branch out online and teach and teach workshop courses, all the online fancy things, and was still holding on. And then the pandemic happened and kind of closed my massage therapy business down for me, pushed me out of the nest, and I've been learning how to do it ever since. And now my more recent passion, I suppose, is helping others grow their businesses, especially in the wellness world, because I find that so many of us in the wellness entrepreneurial world came into it for our own healing first. Maybe we didn't come into it to create profitable businesses, and we want to help. We want to share the gifts that we have and help other people feel better. And then learning how to transition from that to building a business that can actually create an impact and give you freedom and support many people is, there's a lot of learning in there. And so I really, really love zeroing in and helping entrepreneurs bring their deep desires to life.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more, Rebecca, that there is sort of that I too passionate about helping people.
Mm,
But I also realize that yes, I am running a business and it is absolutely okay for me to want and need to make a living.
yeah.
And valuing what I have to offer doesn't take me away from my purpose of help.
Right, it actually expands it even more.
Yeah. And I know in working with, you know, in collaboration with wellness people, mental health people, that it's like, yes, we can actually charge money and good money, because
Mhm.
I always like to use the example of jeans, that there are jeans that cost $30 and there are jeans that cost $400. The fact of the matter is they're both made of denim and they're basically manufactured the same way. It's just one has a perceived value that's higher. Well, shouldn't we all take our Lamborghini skills and sell
Mm.
them for Lamborghini prices versus, you know, Yugo? I know that's a really old thing, but it's by far the cheapest car I can think of is,
Mhm.
you know, and we shouldn't do it. And there's not wrong. And I'm sure I mean, do you want to speak to like helping these other, you know, wellpreneurs or whatever you want to call them, realize that yes, it is okay to actually, you're not taking away from
Mm.
you're still being authentic.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just, and I see that struggle. I talk to people who go, well, I mean, I feel bad about, you know, having to charge people or naming this price. And I'm like, but why? You have bills that you have to pay.
Yeah, I love this subject. It's so I was working with a client of mine on this morning as well. It's the way I like to think about it is when your client pays you, they're not buying your time. They're not buying your expertise. They're not paying for your bills. They're not supporting your business or your lifestyle. They're paying for their own transformation. They're paying
Absolutely.
for their own, they're making a powerful statement to themselves that, yes, I'm choosing to feel better and I'm choosing to say no to the patterns and the things that I used to not do. So, charging an appropriate amount for what it is that you want to offer and the transformation that you want to create is necessary and a benefit to your client. And they need it. And I've had, I love the saying that when we don't pay attention.
Hmm.
And it's so true. Like, I sign up for tons of free webinars and stuff, and most of the time I don't show up. But the things that I pay for, I'm there. I'm invested in, especially the things that I invest in maybe a little scarier an amount. I am
Yeah,
all in. Like, I'm going
totally.
to
Yeah,
make sure.
you're right. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So it's like we need to give our clients the opportunity, the gift of investing in themselves, of having that moment to get the transformation that they're looking for. And that's what payment is about. And when we look at it that way, and then we get to earn a living ourselves, I like to even then look at the living as my earning of my living is a representation of all the transformation in the world. That,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. No, look, I'm going to take a slight detour here because I have two yoga questions for you since you teach yoga.
yeah.
What if my third eye is myopic?
I'm not sure what you mean. I'm
Okay,
not
so
sure. Yeah.
you know how in yoga, especially Iyengar, they're like, oh, and look through your third eye.
Hmm.
Well, when I'm doing that, I'm always wondering, what if my third eye is myopic? What if it's all fuzzy eye? What if I can't see out of
Okay.
it?
I see.
It's
That's an
supposed to
interesting
be funny
question.
here, Rebecca.
Okay, I wasn't getting it. Totally went over my head. Got it.
So stupid things that go through your brain when you're doing yoga, right?
Yeah.
I've done yoga on and off for the past 20 years, and when I do it, I find it really great. But there are things that I find hilarious. At one point, I was doing yoga because I wanted it for the relaxation, but the stress of trying to get to the yoga class on time to be able to relax, like let's say my day I was at a 6, but now I'm at an 8 as I come through the door because I've been trying to find parking and I can't find parking and I'm going to be late. So then I get myself down to like a 5, but I could have been down at a 3, but because I was, and it's nothing to do with the yoga itself, it's like that, just I must do this to help me relax.
Well, us yogis would then say that that was part of the yoga. That what if everything that was brought up in you on your way to the yoga class was your work to
Right,
face, to see, to work through, to get
right,
to the other side.
right. Now, what I found in my yoga practice is that obviously the idea is to let your mind be free and not have thoughts in your head and just relax, right? Like when you're doing savasana and stuff at the end of class, or the now I could take a 10-minute nap time, but that's besides the point. What I found is that actually my most successful yoga practice for that is what I call bed yoga. That's when you alarm has gone off, but you haven't gotten up, but you haven't thought about anything for the day. So you're just completely relaxed. Your body is relaxed. Your mind is clear. And but as a practitioner of yoga, what do you help people in their practice? You know, because it is hard to quiet our mind. There's so much going around. And I don't know about you, but there are times where I'm trying to quiet my mind and there's like a bazillion things. And I learned this thing to go, okay, now refocus, you know, like just acknowledge whatever thought, oh, I need milk, or, you know,
Yeah, yeah. There's a misconception about meditation and yoga that we're supposed to make our mind go blank
yeah,
when it's actually an outcome. It's a
okay,
result of letting your mind be exactly as it is, which means there is both thought and silence in between, right?
sure.
There's in especially in meditation, when we first start practicing, we're looking for that quiet, blissful experience. And you sit down and you're thinking about your lunch, you're thinking about your grocery list, you're thinking about what happened at work today, and you feel even more wound up than you did before you closed your eyes. But what is actually happening behind the scene is your brain and your body, your nervous system is calming and releasing built up stress. And as it's doing that, you're perceiving it through racing thought. So racing thought in a meditation means that you're doing it successfully, that it is affecting you positively, that you will feel better when you open your eyes and move on with your day later. And if you keep practicing, then when enough stress has been released, when enough built up clutter of the mind has been cleared, then you can find this quieter place. You sink a little bit below that those superficial thoughts of the mind. You sink a little deeper, you sink a little deeper. The same goes for yoga. Like I it's not running away from the stress or the challenge, but rather embracing it and searching for the peace alongside it, and not running away from the challenges, from the pain, the discomfort, but tuning into it, exploring it, and going deeper within it. And when we
Yeah,
do that, that translates into our everyday life, that we're not trying to resist and avoid discomfort or challenges. Instead, like we are designed for them. We are capable of experiencing them, and when we aren't resisting them all the time, that's when we can experience the peace. Even in a time of tragedy, even in a time of hardship, there can be peace and grounding available as well.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And for me, even though it's a really hard pose for me to do, I like pigeon pose because it's that the yin and yang. You start off in pigeon pose, and if people don't know what it is, you could look up, but it starts off and it's a lot of stretch going on. But if you hold on to it and you just breathe your way through, after about a minute or so, those muscles that are just holding on so tight literally fatigue. And then you sort of sink down into a really sink into that pose. And I found it very helpful as a great understanding of lean into something. And even
Mm.
when it at first is really hard, it's going to be hard for a while, but it won't be hard forever. It like there comes a point where whatever that hard is fatigues out, and then you get to sink deeper into it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that's all challenging poses, whether it's challenging through strength or challenging through flexibility, through emotional or mental experiences that are brought up that were stored in the body that you tap into when you're in that pose or that sensation. All of that, it's like what you just described is exactly that. It's like learning to sit with the discomfort, and when you do, then it can release and you can sink deeper and you can get to know yourself, be more connected, deepen your awareness. So many beautiful, wonderful things can happen that support us in our daily life.
Absolutely. One of the things I talk about in my book is that there are, well, sometimes we say that there are roadblocks in front of us. I can't do something. But I think oftentimes our roadblocks are a mirage, right? Like they aren't actually there. We put them in front of ourselves. So my question for you, Rebecca, is what are some roadblocks or things that you thought were preventing you, but it turns out they weren't actually real. They weren't preventing you from doing something.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
No, I love that question because also a yoga philosophy, but I live in it all the time, that I'm a firm believer that obstacles are here for us. That because I set this goal, then an obstacle is going to jump in my way. And my brain is going to tell me that, oh, see, I can't have what I want. See, I can't achieve it. See, I'm not strong enough. I'm not knowledgeable enough. I'm not skilled enough to have this thing. But in actuality, it's the universe, the world saying, hey, you set this goal. You need to overcome this obstacle to gain the skill required to achieve the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally have experienced that so many times, trying to think of a specific example. I mean, just in everything that's led me to where I am started out as a roadblock. I suppose when the pandemic happened and I was pushed out of the nest sooner than I wanted to be and launched into building my online business, I was struggling. I had so many obstacles. So many obstacles were telling me that I could not have an online business. I could not have a successful online business. I could not put myself out there. I couldn't figure out the marketing. I couldn't figure out the messaging. I couldn't figure out how to connect and find my people. But in every single one of those obstacles, I needed to find the answers. I needed to build the resilience, the strength, the skills, the knowledge that I now use every day in my personal business. But I actually now have all of those skills available to me to help other businesses when they're facing those same obstacles. And a lot of the failed quote unquote experiences of my past that I thought, okay, I'm going to learn this business thing so I can launch this specific meditation thing that didn't work out. I now use those with other businesses, with in my one-on-one mentorships, and I use it constantly. I couldn't know it then, but now I'm so grateful for all of those obstacles because they are serving me. So now I love to ask myself, when I face an obstacle that I can't see through, I just say, how is this happening for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And look, there's sort of two sides. One, failure is part of the journey. No matter what we
100%.
do, no matter what our journey, there are parts of it that don't go right. I
Yeah,
also believe that we have detours, and oftentimes the detours are so much better, right? Studying psychology, I know that human beings we are creatures of habit. We like structure, we like knowing. So for example, I used to work in the corporate world. I drove to work the same way every single day because this works. And one day I couldn't go home the two different ways that I normally did, so I had to find a new way to get home. And I discovered a much prettier ride. It took about 6 minutes longer, but now, and I never entertained the fact that there was more than one route for me to do. And we all do it. I'm sure that when you go to the store, you go to the supermarket or whatever, you drive the same way every time because, well, that's how you get there, right? Never entertaining that maybe there's a slightly different way. You could take a left on this street and go down here, and maybe there's just a beautiful street, gorgeous trees that in the fall in Connecticut, you're like, wow, look at that. But you just don't, and we just don't entertain it because our brain is like, well, I know how to do it and I don't like change. That being said, do you have a detour that you could think of? I mean, obviously the pandemic for me also was a ginormous detour of the path I thought I was going to go on was not possible. I couldn't go out and give speeches because we couldn't leave our house, I mean, so I had
yeah.
to figure out. So
So your question is
my question is for you, what is a detour that you may have faced that you're like, well, that actually turned out that either forced me to do something, or it just a detour that you may have encountered that you're like, wow, that turned out to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many.
Of course.
My
No, of course.
Yeah, my entire business, it has been one detour after another. I thought in 8th grade, I knew my life would be I would become a famous pastry chef one day. And then one detour after another led me led me to here. But, I love to think about it's easy to connect the dots looking back, right?
Sure.
When look back, I can see moments where I thought like, oh my gosh, I'm going down this road. It's terrible. I wish I was doing the thing that I could rely on that I expected. And and it turned out to be the greatest gift that life could offer me. And then the next thing happened that way. Yeah, I mean, every turn in my business has been a detour that I did not expect, and which has taught me to not be so attached to what we expect our lives to look like. Instead, to lean into those little twists and turns of life because you have no idea what's around the corner. And I find that the universe understands what I need far better than I do. Like it just always turns out to work out so much better than I could have asked for. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Rebecca, this has been an awesome conversation.
It has. Thank you so much.
Sadly, our time, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that.
Yeah, it's been great.
It goes so quickly. Well, I just quickly, if people want to get a hold of you,
Mm,
how can they?
sure. Well, I have a podcast in case if there's any podcast listeners that want to check out another podcast as well. It's called Inner Critic Freedom. And then finding me on Instagram, Rebecca Doring Meditation, or my website is www.deeprootedbliss.com.
Awesome. And that information will be in podcast description. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming in and sharing. It has really been awesome.
Thank you
Dare
so
I
much for
say
having me.
epic. And I just want to I want to remind everyone that if you go to epicbegins.com, you can find some self-study courses. If you put in Epic Begins, you get a $50 discount on any of my online courses. And as always, remember, epic choices lead to the epic life that we all want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book Epic Begins with One Step Forward at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Xander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Xander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.